Hello everyone. We are into the second session of rotational dynamics. In the first part of rotational dynamics video, where we actually have studied what exactly is circular motion and what are the different terms associated with the circular motion, where we actually saw what is meant by angular displacement, what is angular velocity, what is angular acceleration, what is linear velocity, linear displacement, and the relation between linear velocity and angular velocity. That we have derived equation v is equal to omega cross r. In terms of magnitude, the equation is popularly known as v is equal to r omega, where v stands to be the linear velocity of a particle performing circular motion, and omega is the angular velocity, r being the radius of circular path. What we are going to have here is today we will go for what is meant by uniform circular motion. And in uniform circular motion, when I talk about what exactly is meant by uniform circular motion, the particle will be said to perform UCM if it is having a constant angular velocity, or you can say the particle is moving with a constant speed. Angular velocity is same, or the rotational speed will remain same. So it will have a same magnitude of linear velocity as the third definition says. And whenever the particle is going to have the same constant angular velocity, of course its angular acceleration has to be zero. So there are different ways in which you can define what is meant by uniform circular motion. So whenever we talk about uniform circular motion, it is supposed to be in such a way that the particle has to perform equal angular displacement in the equal interval of time, however small the time interval, equal in time interval you consider. Hereafter, we are going to a very important thing that is called acceleration of a particle performing circular motion. Even when we are saying the particle is performing circular motion, whether it is a uniform circular motion or non-uniform circular motion, because the particle's direction changes at every instant of time, the motion of the particle has to be accelerated. So by chance, even do not be under impression that UCM does not have acceleration. Every circular motion is an accelerated motion itself, and we are now trying to find what is the acceleration of a particle performing circular motion. In the first session, where we saw the equation vector v is equal to vector omega cross vector r, we are now considering once again a particle performing circular motion, having radius equal to r, omega be the instantaneous angular velocity and v be the linear velocity. A is let us say acceleration, total instantaneous acceleration of a particle, and alpha let us say it is the instantaneous angular acceleration. Now if we start with that equation, v is equal to omega cross r, and I differentiate both sides with respect to time, the left hand side will become dv by dt, where dv by dt stands for your acceleration of a particle. And as I want to find what is the acceleration of a particle, I'll differentiate both sides. On the right hand side, the terms are omega and r, out of which r is always going to change its direction. So with respect to time, r changes always, whereas if the particle is performing UCM, omega will remain constant, and if omega is changing, if the particle is non-UCM, even omega will be changing. So on both, you see right hand side, both the terms may be changing, or sometimes omega will remain constant and only r will be changing. Let's assume that the motion is non-UCM. So on the right hand side, I will have to apply u into v rule of differentiation, and it looks like a vector a is equal to d omega by dt cross r plus omega cross d r by dt. I have, if you see that equation's right hand side very carefully, you will find that I have not changed the order of those terms omega and r while differentiating, even because it's a cross product, and cross product by changing, you see cross product is non-commutative, so you cannot interchange its directions, cannot, I mean if you make a cross b and b cross a, the directions will be you see different. So on the right hand side now I have d omega by dt, where d omega by dt stands for you see acceleration alpha, angular acceleration, and dr by dt can be considered to be equal to ds by dt, where you see this ds by dt will be same as your linear velocity v. So right hand side will now become as vector A is equal to alpha cross r plus omega cross v, where if you try to even consider the directions of alpha and r, if you say if a particle is performing circular motion like this and the direction of omega is here, even alpha is considered here, the vector radius will be pointing in the plane. So alpha and r both are perpendicular to each other, so its magnitude will be only r into alpha, whereas omega cross v, omega always points in the upward direction, direction of velocity will be here or here or here, so even omega and v are perpendicular to each other. Whereas now both the terms, if you even remember the applications of dimensions, each and every term in the equation has to have equal dimensions, so each and every term on the right hand side must be representing acceleration. The first term out of which is representing tangential acceleration, if you see alpha cross r, because its direction will be in the direction of tangent, alpha being here, r being here, alpha cross r will be in the direction of tangent. If you say alpha is here and maybe r is in this particular direction, so alpha cross r will be in the direction of tangent. If it's here, every time it will be like that. You can try and check with your right hand cross product screw rule. Whereas the other quantity, that is omega cross v, that is equal to your centripetal acceleration, that v is equal to r omega. If you try to use, it will give you omega squared r. So a tangential in terms of magnitude is r alpha, and a centripetal in terms of magnitude will be equal to omega v, or it's equal to omega squared r. So if you consider these two things, now I understand the tangential acceleration is going to act along the tangent of the circular path. If this is the circular motion, the tangential acceleration will be along the tangent and the centripetal will be towards the center. So the direction of tangential and centripetal, they both are even at right angles to each other. So in my equation number 3, where I find vector A net, the total acceleration of a particle performing circular motion is sum of the two vectors. One is tangential acceleration acting along the tangent to the circular path, and the second is centripetal acceleration, which will be acting towards the center. So the vector addition, it's going to be addition of two vectors which are at right angles to each other, and that is why the you see total acceleration, its magnitude will be given by a is equal to square root of a tangential square plus a centripetal square. Of course, you can use even your parallelogram law of vector addition for that, and try to have a similar kind of equation, where then I find that a is then in terms of magnitude equal to r alpha bracket squared plus omega squared r bracket squared, or even you can write it as v squared by r the whole bracket squared. Whereas if the particle is considered to perform a UCM, uniform circular motion, as I said earlier, that alpha value will be equal to 0, and if alpha is equal to 0, you will find that the first term gets cancelled and the total acceleration is only centripetal acceleration. So one must every time remember that if a particle is performing UCM, the value of alpha is equal to 0, and that's why the tangential acceleration will be 0. The entire acceleration of a particle performing UCM is only centripetal acceleration. We have marked it like this. So that is a very important derivation about the particle about performing circular motion. Now I go for the next thing, and that is to find the acceleration of a particle performing uniform circular motion, and this is by a method of differentiation, where now if I see the diagram shows you that you have a particle performing circular motion having center as O, radius is equal to r, and omega is the angular velocity. If I consider the particle to be initially at point A, I'll consider time t is equal to 0 at that instant of time, whereas after time t the particle is reaching some other point called B, where the position of point B, its coordinates, let's consider it to be x comma y, such that the angular displacement, measure angle AOB, is equal to theta. Of course it has to be equal to omega t. Now if I just have a look at that diagram once again and I drop a perpendicular, you see that vector OB is equal to vector R, the instantaneous radius vector position. By using triangle law of vector addition, it can be considered to be equal to xi plus yj if x and y are the you can say x and y coordinates of point B. So you will have vector R is then equal to xi plus yj, where x can be considered to be equal to r cos theta and y is equal to, you see, r sin theta. Now I understand that magnitude of vector r is going to remain the same, whereas direction of vector r changes. Omega is constant for a UCM. So on the right hand side, only thing that is going to change and is responsible for changing direction of vector r is your time t. So as time t changes, the vector radius changes. Then I differentiate your equation number 1 with respect to time t, and then I find that dr by dt, which I said is similar or equal to that of, you see, your dv by dr by dt is same as ds by dt. That will be equal to vector v, where vector v is now going to be equal to your derivative of that term. If you just do a little bit of mathematics, you will find it's equal to ir omega cos of omega t plus jr omega cos of omega t. There is some problem here, it seems, in the equation number 1, that sine is unwanted. It has to be ir cos omega t plus jr sin omega t. It is by chance written as ir sine of cos omega t. That sine term should not be present in equation number 1. So after taking its derivative of cos turns out to be minus sine, and it will give you v is equal to minus ir omega sine of omega t plus jr omega cos of omega t. Once again you differentiate this and you will find that equation that you get is like what has been highlighted with yellow marker, that vector a is equal to minus omega squared into bracket ir cos omega t plus jr sine of omega t, where that term inside the bracket, if I see equation number 1, it is same as vector r, and then I find that vector a is equal to, it is minus omega squared into vector r. That's equation number 2. Just a minute, I'll so we are back once again. So this equation number 2, it gives me the total acceleration of a particle performing UCM. Of course, we have studied that this entire acceleration in UCM is only centripetal. The negative sign in that equation 2 is showing that the direction of acceleration A is opposite to that of your vector r direction. So vector r being in the radially outward direction, vector A, that acceleration is going to be towards the center, and that's why you call it as centripetal acceleration. Of course, in terms of magnitude, you will have centripetal acceleration is same as omega squared r, or it's equal to v squared by r. That's a very simple derivation. Because its acceleration, its SI unit is going to be meter per second square. Now once again we are reiterating that for every particle performing circular motion, centripetal acceleration is must, and whenever there is acceleration, there has to be a force according to Newton's second law, that F is equal to m into a, and because your acceleration is centripetal acceleration, the force will be called as centripetal force, and that equation tells you FCP is equal to mass into mCP. This type of force has to act on the particle. It's called centripetal force, and in terms of magnitude, that FCP is equal to m into omega squared r, or it's very popularly mv squared by r. Students just have to remember this equation very carefully. It's very important equation. Every now and then while we talk about rotational dynamics or even circular motion of a particle, this force has to be there acting on the particle. Without this type of a force, circular motion will not be existing. Now we talk about what exactly is that centripetal force, that F centripetal. As the definition says, it's a real force acting on a particle performing circular motion, acting radially inward towards the center of circle. We have already got this equation. FCP is equal to, in terms of vectors, it's minus m omega squared vector r, or it's minus mv squared upon r multiplied by r cap, where r cap is a unit vector in the direction of radius vector. So this is going to be a real force. The force is existing in the inertial frame of reference, and the circular motion cannot be there without this force. You cannot explain a circular motion without this kind of a force. The origin can be explained. We can have several examples for this. For example, we have got two examples explained here. One is that whenever you talk about electrons which are revolving around the positively charged nucleus, it is the electrostatic force, or what we call it as Coulomb force of attraction, that gives you the necessary centripetal force. Whereas if you talk about the you can say any planet moving around the say moon revolving around the earth, or maybe earth revolving around sun, so the gravitational force is providing the necessary centripetal force for every satellite orbiting around its own planet. Of course, if you consider a stone tied to a string and the stone is being whirled, then in that particular case the tension is provided by the string, and that will provide the necessary centripetal force. Whereas there is another kind of a force that we are going to now look into, and that's called centrifugal force. For every particle which is performing a circular motion, that particle which is in the accelerated state will experience a force which is in the radially outward direction. That is called centrifugal. The name itself is, you see, centripetal was towards the center, centrifugal will be opposite to the direction of, you see that it will be in the direction of radius vector, acting in the radially outward direction. So it's a force which is acting on a particle performing circular motion in the radially outward direction, which we say is not a real force, or it's a pseudo force. Because the particle is in the non-inertial or in the accelerated frame of reference, this force is going to act on it. The origin for this force, however, cannot be explained as we could explain the earlier things for gravitational or maybe electrostatic force, or maybe that stone tied to a string. Whereas the magnitude of centrifugal force is also same as that of the centripetal force, that F centrifugal is supposed to be equal to mv squared by r, or m omega squared by r, m omega squared r. Because it's a force, its SI unit will be Newton itself. And there are examples that you can actually find while you try to find an example of that. If you consider a centrifuge machine usually used in chemistry laboratories, we have got a test tube kept in the centrifuge machine, and the machine rotates, and if you have any kind of a turbid solution at the bottom of the test tube, you find the precipitate is getting collected. So that's a centrifuge machine. Whereas a very common example that we all know is you see water droplets being thrown off in the washing machine dryer. So that's a very common example. That's basically the principle on which washing machine dryer is actually working, on the principle of centrifuge or centrifugal force. In the third session of this rotational dynamics, we will speak about what is the maximum force acting on a particle on unbanked curved road having only friction. You see, even for a banked road which is not considered with friction, and for a banked road which is also considered with friction. So that is about the second part of you can say rotational dynamics, where we have seen the acceleration and the force acting on a particle performing circular motion. Thank you even for watching this video. Thanks a lot.